You have an emergency. You have an increase in steam demand. Maybe it's a planned shutdown. Are you prepared? We're talking contingency plans for rental boilers on The Boiling Point. I'm Richie Ware with Boiling Point. We're talking with Stephen Taylor, our rental manager here. We're inside a 650 horsepower mobile boiler. Steve would like to talk a little bit today about the contingency plans and what a customer may need to have things set up for. Why don't you take us through steam line and just things that they have to have set up?
Now, two things a customer needs to look at. One, if you're building a boiler room, take into account right off the bat that at some point you may have something go down. Go ahead and put your connections in. We'll talk about those later. If you have an existing boiler room, same thing. When you take that boiler room down for any reason, you need to go ahead and put your lines in, put your connections in. Steam line. Find a good place where you can bring temporary equipment up and set it, and go ahead and cut your steam line in, cut the valve in, put it there, blind it off to where when something happens, it's there ready for you to hook up.
Okay, so when you actually are doing these hookups, is it better to have the hookups on the outside of the wall or actually have the hookups on the inside of the wall?
If you have them on the outside of the wall, you have to be really careful, because if it's in freezing weather and you blind that off, it'll hold water and they'll freeze up. It's better to have them inside the wall, have a blank on the wall there to where you get easy access to it. You have to have fuel. If you're running natural gas, bring your natural gas connection out there. Size it for whatever temporary boiler you're going to be putting in place. Feed water, same thing. If you're going to feed it with your existing feed water system, do that. If you just need fresh water, bring the fresh water out. Blow down connections, all of those things have to be taken into account. Condensate return, everything that runs your existing boiler room, power, everything needs to come to the external wall of the boiler room where you're going to locate the temporary boiler.
As the boiler actually shows up on site, is it a situation where it actually needs to be level? Or how do you get the boiler in?
Absolutely has to be level. If you have a gravel place is perfect. Concrete is even better. Blacktop will work very well. You just have to be careful. You set it on blacktop, these things, if they're going to be there for a while, that blacktop heats up, they'll sink in that blacktop. Put timbers down, spread that weight over the blacktop, you'll be good. If you have to put it on grass, then you put a lot of timbers down because they will sink. Location is really important. Be careful where you put this thing. If your president's office is in the front of the building, you probably don't want to put it there because he's going to tell you to move it. Been there, done that. So be careful where you put it. Another thing to be careful of is the exhaust off of these things, these temporary boilers. You know, you've got the exhaust off the boiler is going in the air somewhere. Be careful of air intakes. The secretary's office is right there, and she likes to keep her window open after noon on a sunny day. Be careful where you put that, because those fumes will get inside the building. You may have to take your exhaust up, move it away from the building, whatever has to happen. Pedestrians, be careful where you set this thing, that when you run those temporary lines, you run them to where people are not going to be walking over top of them. If it's at a college or university, they will walk over them. I mean, the kids are going to play on them. You got steam lines there. It just happens. You can't put enough precautions in to keep them away from it. Get it up in the air where they can't get to it. You know, the maintenance guy will tell you the forklift never comes around this corner of the building. As soon as you run that gas line 2 feet off the ground, the forklift's going to come around there and tear it out of the ground. It's just going to happen. Be very careful where you put those lines.
Now, you mentioned gas, but how about number two? Same thing?
Same thing. That you run fuel oil. These units are combination fuel, natural gas or number 2 fuel oil. Bring your connections to the outside of the wall. Make sure you have adequate fuel for when this happens. It's not going to happen if it's an emergency. It's not going to happen in the middle of July at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's going to happen January 1st, 2 o'clock in the morning when it's 4 below zero. It's not going to be a very opportune time for it to go down.
And I'm assuming that you want to make sure access for oil trucks, for fuel trucks to be able to get to the unit.
For everything to get in there and get it out of there. If you got to bring fuel in there, you have to leave it open to where they can get the fuel trucks in and out of there. Chemicals, another thing. Make sure you get a hold of your chemical people. They take care of the chemical of it, and you've got to have access to the unit where they can bring the chemical drums in and out of the trailer.
You were talking a little bit about some specifics as far as line sizing. How would they go about actually finding that out?
Just give us a call, let us know what your steam capacities are. We can size fuel lines, condensate return lines, steam line, makeup water lines, We can size all those lines for you. We do it all the time for contingency plans, so that when something happens and it goes down on January 1st at 2 o'clock in the morning, all the lines are sized, they're all brought to the outside of the building. The hookup is very quick, very easy to do. Noise is another issue. These things are going to be on the outside of the building. They're going to create some noise. Make sure you take that into account. If it's a university and the tenured professor's office is right here, he's not going to let you put that unit right there outside that building. Just things you have to take into account when you decide where you're going to put that temporary boiler. Another thing to take into account is when that temporary comes in, even if it's a scheduled outage, emergency, whatever it is, we have to take that boiler to high fire for commissioning purposes, so you've got to be able to get rid of the full capacity of steam of that boiler. Figure out how you're going to do that. Do you need to run a silencer? Can you vent the steam? Can you use the steam? The steam has to go somewhere. Figure that out on front end.
Well, Steve, we appreciate you hanging out with us today on the Boiling Point. Make sure you give us a shout. You'll get a quote in an hour. Thanks for hanging out with us today on the Boiling Point. Hopefully you found some good information about contingency plans with Stephen. We ask that you just watch all of our Boiling Point videos on our YouTube channel. Like us on Facebook, maybe send us a tweet on Twitter. We'll see you next time.